Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Marcy.
I'm Tristan, long lost fat brother.
and we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss season 3 of The Bear. Now, we were supposed to discuss this last week. However, Hurricane Beryl hit us here in Houston. Marcy, luckily you're not in Houston, so you didn't have to deal with the power outage that we experienced. But Tristan, this is your first time back on the pod since the hurricane, so I want to get an update. How you doing? How's life with power again?
Life is pretty good. Ever since power went out Monday morning around 5:30 in the morning, came back Thursday, so about literally 4 days no power. We jetted off to like Corpus Christi and South Padre for a few days. Just came back the other day. Had to throw away all our food, so we spent all yesterday like grocery shopping. Same thing, did a little bit more today. So life has been spent in HEB and Sam's. That's all I can say. We're good.
Yeah, well, glad to hear it. Glad you're back with us, and yeah, it's good to have power. It's good to have power. Yeah, we're thankful to be up and running again. So let's talk about season 3 of The Bear. Before I get Marcy and Tristan's thoughts on the season, I want to hit you with some facts about The Bear. Not facts, not as in like Teddy and Neil and Sammy fact. No, facts, FACTS. The Bear is an FX comedy / drama series that airs on Hulu. The first season aired in 2022 and had 8 episodes. Season 2 aired a year later in 2023, had 10 episodes. Season 3 also has 10 episodes and released on June 26th. The show is created by Christopher Storer. The cast, it features Jeremy Allen White, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, Ayo Edebiri, Lionel Boyce, Liza Colón-Zayas, Abby Elliott, and Matty Matheson. This show has received a lot of awards. The first season alone received 10 Primetime Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Comedy Series, along with Jeremy Allen White winning an award, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and Ayo Edebiri. She also won an award for her role. And the show has also won 4 Golden Globes, including the Best Television Series, Musical or Comedy in 2024. So this is a critically acclaimed show. We've talked about it before, just kind of, we never actually broken down the series before, but between us, we've talked about how great this show is. So let's get to it, because the third season was kind of divisive, and we'll talk about that more in depth in a little bit. But Marcy, overall, what are your thoughts on season 3 of The Bear?
Yes, you are right. There's been a lot of feelings. It's been very divisive. Lots of people on the internet chiming in. Dare I say, this may be my favorite season of The Bear. I actually really enjoyed it. I definitely do listen to some of the people that said this was the worst season and they didn't like it. It didn't resonate with them. I understand where they're coming from, but I really enjoyed it. So I think this is one of my, I'm going to say it's my favorite season, because I did go back and rewatch seasons 1 and 2 this past week. Mm-hmm. Season 3 is tops for me.
Wow. Strong take. Tristan, what are your thoughts on it? Is it your favorite, or where does it rank amongst the 3 seasons?
As of today, as of July 16th, it is not my favorite. Season 2 is still my favorite, but I'm with Marcy in the fact that I absolutely loved season 3. I understand, like she said, I understand why people had qualms with season 3. There were some narrative choices that we'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. That I understand how people felt like, maybe it was like I think a lot of people felt like this was a gap season for The Bear. I disagree, again, for reasons we'll talk about, but I absolutely love season 3. I can't put it over season 2, only not because they're not in contention, because I think they are. I think season 3 definitely deserves to be in that discussion with season 2. But season 2, the highs, I think, are not just like some of the highs of the show, but like some of the best highs I've seen from television just over the past decade, 2 decades. But season 3, I absolutely, positively love. I've been waiting to talk about this.
Yeah, me too. This is a pod I've been looking forward to for a while. I agree with y'all. I love season 3. It's not my favorite. I think I'm more in line with Tristan. I think season 2 is just phenomenal. But the thing about season 3, I will say, is I love the characters. I love the music of this show. But the story did not advance much this season. And I think, a lot of it is due to the fact that they filmed season 3 and 4 back to back. And the original plan for the show was they're only going to do 3 seasons. And so there was basically 3 seasons worth of story, but because the show has become such a success and it's won all these awards and it's probably the most watched show on Hulu. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I assume it's, one of Hulu's flagships programs because of the success. The success and the business of the show has kind of gotten in the way of the story, I believe. Still, even though the show kind of was a slower pace and it felt like they were trying to stretch the season out, I still think there are a lot of great moments and some great episodes, and there's a lot for us to discuss. And yeah, I overall I think it was a great season. I want to jump right into this because this is something that I mentioned before about how divisive it was. The previous seasons were, like I said, critically acclaimed. Season 1 had a 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 2, 99% critic score, Rotten Tomatoes. Season 3, 89%, very respectable, still very high. Okay, so now compare that with the audience score. Now in season 1, 92%. So the audience loved the bear. Season 2, 93%. They went up. Awesome. Season 3 has an audience score on Rotten Tomatoes of 53%, making it rotten, which to me, and Marcy, I'm going to get your thoughts. To me, that's insane because this show is not, is it a little bit down from season 2? Yeah, I think so. But to say this season was a rotten season, below average, I couldn't disagree more.
I agree with you in that I definitely disagree with that. And I think it is because of what you said. A lot of people have been saying the story didn't really progress too much. Mm-hmm. But I think this season did really good of giving us more backstory into these characters, building off of everything we'd seen in seasons 1 and season 2. We got a lot more backstory into Tina, who we didn't really have that much backstory on. Yeah. And her backstory kind of incorporated some more backstory on Mikey that just kind of helped, again, tell us more about this character that we've only seen in flashbacks or people's memories, because he's obviously been dead since before the season started. And even though I guess, timeline didn't progress too much, this season only covered about 2 months worth of time. But a lot of things still happened, even if it didn't seem like it. So I definitely don't agree with that. But again, everybody's going to have their opinions. But no, I think this, from just a quality standpoint, the acting was on point, the storytelling was on point, just the way this was beautifully shot. I think it's craft and it's not worthy of a 50% score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. Tristan, what do you think is the reasoning for that low score? Is it just because at a certain point people get tired? When you're winning the championship every year, eventually people are like, you know what? I want to see that team fall. Is it something like that? Or is it just how fickle people are on the internet? I really can't explain it. Do you have an answer?
I have 2 theories, kind of. One is, I think, if you look at season 1 and 2, if you can clearly, you can close your eyes and point to where the largest plot development is. Like season 1, the main character of season 1 and 2 is the restaurant. We get some backstories into characters, but overall, we're here for the characters. We are learning more about. I'm sorry, in season 1 and 2, we're here for the restaurant, and we're here for all the anxiety that comes with it, the fast-paced motion. It's Carmen coming back, and season 1 is mostly about rebuilding the beef into what he wants it to be, setting that standard. Season 2, of course, is moving into the next phase, the new restaurant, the bear. And getting that word, there's a clear thing that you can point to. And really in season 3, there's not the one thing that you can point to and say, In season 3, they went from here to here, right? And so for a lot of people, which leads me to my second theory, is we're just in this, Game of Thrones, House of Dragonization of television where you showed us dragons, show us a fight, right? And it's like you've shown them this thing, now we want to see it more and more and more. And like it's the stuff in the middle. I said it on a House of Dragon pod. It's the stuff in the middle that makes the shows what they are. And season 3 really tackles the in the middle things. Yeah, we don't have Carmen and Claire in season 3, but we have like the aftermath of Carmen and Claire. Especially from Carmen's point of view, we see what makes him tick a lot. We see how he feels about Claire and why he can't like really be the type of guy that he needs to be in order to enjoy a relationship with her, right? Like the mental steps, the mental blocks that he has to get over, like just apologizing, expressing feelings, expressing that he needs help, expressing that, or being able to accept the fact that he can have enjoyment in this life that he's also chasing while also having his passion. Like it's the character plot development that's the star of the show in season 3. And I think people just want action. And I know this is a comedy / drama, but like the action takes place in like how these characters are so dynamic, right? Like Marcy said, we get to see more Tina. We learn more about Marcus. We learn a shitload about Sydney.
Sydney, yep.
Right? Even though like the major thing honestly doesn't even happen. Like, is she going to sign this partnership? And now you have to think about why won't she sign these partnerships? And you see all the little things that are happening throughout these episodes that both show you why she should sign this partnership and why she absolutely probably, is a lot more hesitant, right? All the way up to the end of the season. So I think those two things, man, we just want to see that action and just not having that clear plot development that people like. I don't know how big, Kendrick Lamar fans y'all are, but like this is like, his last album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, which originally was kind of panned because it didn't have the bangers. It wasn't as accessible as, even though Kendrick Lamar is pretty complex, like this last album was nowhere near as accessible as the albums that preceded it because most of it is a character development album. It's like, this is the things I've struggled with. This is the things I've had to look within myself. And that's what The Bear season 3 reminds me of. It's like a long therapy session, but with like different patients. And that's why I love it because I'm a literary person. I'm an English teacher by heart. So I love to see like the in-between things that really make the show what it is. And that's what season 3 nailed for me.
I think season 3 is all about the internal fights, not so much like dragon fights or like the fight to open the restaurant. It's what's going on inside everybody's head. And I think that's why it was so compelling to me, just because that sort of stuff like really interests me to understand why characters and people do what they do, just because that feels more real to me. Like an internal struggle and fight is something I can relate to because that's what I go through. I don't really fight dragons or, just have a lot of like physical chaos in my life.
Yeah, I mean, this show's so realistic. Like, there's certain parts of it that are overly dramatic. I don't love when they have the real chefs and it's like, not that I don't like those people, but it's like I think the way they talk about food, and I mean, obviously they have a different point of view from food than I do, than most people do in fine dining. Obviously, I don't have really any experience with fine dining, but the way they talk about it is so like, I don't know. It seems like it's overly dramatic, kind of melodramatic. But
to be fair, though, they have consulted different, fine chefs throughout the country, and all of them have said like this is damn near 100% accurate.
No, I agree with that. It's just to me like the characters are so grounded and real, and then these people these famous chefs are like they're so like I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I want to say. Just they're saying, oh, you're going to remember the people more than you remember the food. And it's like, if you work at a place, yeah, but if you're a patron, I mean, if you're there all the time, yeah, the people are obviously important. But I think some of that stuff, you're kind of getting lost in the sauce. Like I don't know, like they need to kind of relax and be like, hey, you make food and you want to be the best at it. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the other characters, the main cast is they seem like such real people. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about this show. But I think something else that people maybe are bumping on is just the fact that it was, to be continued, right? That's how it ends. And it feels like not only is the season a cliffhanger, every character has like an internal cliffhanger going on. You've got, Carmi, and basically everyone's worried about this review that's going to be the Chicago Tribune. And we'll discuss that a little bit more later. He's worried about that. He's now so focused on being the best he can be and trying to get a star for the Bear that he's almost like not a person. You know what I mean? He doesn't really interact with people in this season very much. It's all this internal struggle, all these flashbacks he's having to what, his journey to become this world-class chef. Then you have Sydney, who has, she has two offers. She has the agreement to be a partner with the Bear. She's got this new agreement from the guy from Ever, Shapiro, who's starting his own thing. He wants her to come in. She's going to make more money than she would make at the Bear. She has this decision. She moved out of her dad's house this season, so she's got a lot of stuff going on internally. You've got Richie, whose wife is about to marry this guy that he doesn't hate. He actually kind of likes, Frank, who's played by Josh Hartnett, who's one of the major cameos in the season. You have all these characters. Marcus is dealing with the death of his mother from the previous season. He's trying to find inspiration through art. You've got all these internal struggles. And the thing is, we don't get any resolution to any of them, which, it works for the season, but I can understand why people are like, hey, this feels like kind of like half a season stretch. It's like 5 episodes worth of story stretched over 10 because you're trying to cover for an additional season that you didn't plan for. I totally get that criticism, but Marcy, like you said, the quality of the show, the quality of the writing, the way the show looks and feels, it feels like real life. And it's just, I think it's like, I still think it's the best show on TV. I really do. Like, I feel, even though the season I think was, half step down, still an excellent show. So, let's talk about, I mentioned the cameos. Let's jump into that. This season featured like 2 kind of big surprise cameos. I mentioned Josh Hartnett. He is Tiff's fiance. Tiff is Richie's ex-wife. And then we have John Cena, who is one of the Fack brothers. He's Sammy Fack, which was very much a surprising entry into the Tristan's not a fan of it. Marcy, I want to get your thoughts real quick. What did you think about the 2 cameos, John Cena and Josh Hartnett?
I love seeing Josh Hartnett again. I think I've been seeing him in a lot of things since like the last couple of years. We saw him in Oppenheimer, and then he was in Black Mirror, I think also last year. So it was good to see him. And again, I expected him like, oh, okay, they're going to make him like this guy that we're supposed to hate because like he might be a dick, or just because, he's Richie's ex-wife's fiance. Do we just hate him automatically? But he seemed like a genuine, nice guy. So I liked that they didn't just throw that in as conflict and make it like Richie versus Frank just to have some type of conflict in the story. And again, it was just great to see a man be able to be vulnerable in front of his fiance's ex-husband and be like, hey, like, I feel bad that I didn't talk to you first about it, even though he like didn't have to. Like, you're not really, supposed to ask your the ex-husband. But I mean, I thought that was a great touch to just show that vulnerability, to show Richie be vulnerable and open to having that conversation with Frank was great. The Sammy Fack was great to see John Cena again, but it was a lot like his characters and other things we've seen him in. Most recently, I saw him in that Ricky Stenicki movie, which was kind of
a true
crazy.
Classic.
Yeah,
Stenicki's
a true classic of cinema for sure. So it was fun to see him because his character and just kind of like the facts in general brought some much needed levity to the story into the season. But again, like Tristan, if we hadn't have gotten that cameo, if Sammy didn't exist or Sammy had been played by a different actor or character, like it would have been fine. Like John Cena did not make this season, but it was just still kind of enjoyable to see that just comedic reprieve with the facts.
Yeah. Tristan, what did you think about, did you feel like it was kind of stunt casting to get Cena and, Josh Hartnett's kind of like, he's reviving his career. Like Oppenheimer really kind of relaunched him back into the mainstream. And and obviously John Cena is just kind of popping up in everything. What did you feel about the two major cameos for the season?
Well, Josh Hartnett I thought was perfect because
Yeah.
it didn't feel like stunt casting to me because I didn't, when he came on screen, the first thought that popped in my head was not Josh Hartnett. Like it took me a while. I was like, oh, that's Josh Hartnett. I thought it was perfect. I thought with Frank, Richie, and Tiffany, like there's like this vulnerability triangle, right? Like Frank, again, being vulnerable, to Tiff's ex-husbands, like, hey, this, I don't know, this misplaced feeling of I should have asked you, he was her father or something like that. I also like Tiffany being vulnerable enough to be like, hey, I need you at this wedding. Like, and hammering at home, like, I absolutely need you. Our daughter needs you. Like Richie dealing with the vulnerability of like you said, like I really, in theory, should hate this man. And in any other show, he would hate him. Right. And I think that's what makes The Bear great. Yeah. Is because it explores like these the nuance of just complexity of feelings of like, society tells me I'm supposed to hate this guy because, male pride, like he has claimed my old prize or something like that. But also I have this love for this person. I have this love for my daughter. And like, I understand that this makes them happy. And I really have no logical reason to hate this person. And like dealing with that in real time, you can see Richie, you can see his face, his wonderful acting. Good God. Just from all parties. So I thought the Josh Hartnett appearance worked perfectly. John Cena, not so much. The facts are by themselves. Like when we talk about The Bear 10 years from now, we talk about the facts. Like they're gonna go into lore from like being like that supreme comedic relief from like the overall stresses of the show. But like the facts by themselves they're good. We don't need more. Like the point is overdriven home. Like the facts. They're comedic relief. They can be annoying. They're super helpful, great intentions, great people. But like overall, like it was just annoying to me. Yeah. Like John, every time he was on, like I guess it added more to the anxiety of the show. Yeah. Because like I'm just sitting there like, man, will somebody tell them to leave the room, please? If it was me, I'd be like, hey, you gotta go. Somebody has to go. So I thought it was funny. Like the scenes were funny. I won't say like they took away from the show. I just don't think having John Cena as another fact added much. If anything, it added more stress because I'm watching and I get annoyed I'm a Leo. I get annoyed like very quickly. And within 10 seconds of him being on camera, I'm like, all right, if he's not haunting you, somebody please say the fucking password. So this can so I guess it worked in a sense like you were supposed to feel that what everybody else is feeling. In that scene, but I guess it worked too well. So I'm gonna give a little thumbs down to John Cena. Like I said, because it was too effective.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't see the family resemblance between John Cena's character and Teddy and Neil, the other two Fact brothers.
Was he the only one who like was eating right in the family? Like I want to.
I guess so. Maybe adopted. I'm not sure. They didn't really explain that. But I agree. I think the scene at I guess what I was saying with stunt casting, I really meant like how like it's surprising they got these big stars, much like in the first season, how it's like Olivia Colman and John, Mulaney's in there briefly, and you have all these big people, Bob Odenkirk, Jamie Lee Curtis. You have all these like huge stars that are just in there, these very small roles. I felt like that's what kind of they did with Josh Hartnett and John Cena. I would never predicted those two people would have been in this season at all. And who knows who we'll get in season 4. But you bring up a good point about the facts, which is one of my kind of criticisms of the season is I just feel like there's too much of them. And like, I'm just saying like, shave their screen time back like 10% because, and I feel like in a more, in a normal season per se, you wouldn't have as much time for them. So I think if you pared them back just a little bit, I think it would work better. I do like the characters. It's just kind of who they are. And I think that's what we're getting is they're just kind of annoying and obnoxious, but they are funny. So I get that part of it. I do want
to two facts maximum.
two facts maximum.
Well, now I really want to meet like Francie. Like they obviously like Nat hates her. So like I definitely want to know like what happened to make you hate her because Neil loves her. Neil and Ted like love her. She's great. She's always there for us is what they said. But
Yeah, I feel
Natalie,
like
not a fan.
I feel like we've got to get her in season 4. We've got to see who that person is in the next season. So I want to mention there's one other cameo, and it's the guy that plays the computer. That's Brian Koppelman, who he wrote the movie Rounders, the Matt Damon and God, what's his name? He played the Hulk, that movie. Edward Norton. That movie about poker, and then he also is the creator of Billions. So no stranger to the big time TV and movies. I thought he did a good job. He was a very surprising addition as you don't see him acting in a whole lot of things, but my favorite computer moment was in episode 5 when the computer is basically there to tell them, like, okay, here's how y'all can cut some stuff, and he brings up Marcus, and he's talking to Sugar, and he says, I think Marcus is too expensive. Do we need a Marcus? And she's like, if you fuck with Marcus, I will murder you. And it's believable, obviously she's like, I've grown up with you my whole life. If you fuck with that guy, you're dead. So I thought that was a great moment.
I love that because the way they introduced it made you think there was going to be like this prolonged conflict, and
right.
They stepped on that shit in like within 2 minutes. Like, no, Marcus is going nowhere.
Right.
Please and thank you.
Yeah, she shot that down very quickly. Moving on to something that, to me, this is one of my issues with the show, and it's not the show's fault at all. But this show, just like the first 2 seasons, was a binge drop, right? It's a binge release, so you get all of them at once. Me and my girlfriend, the weekend it came out, in 2 days we knocked it out. We just knocked it out because I was afraid, like, if you don't watch it, someone online is going to ruin it, because that's how people are online. Thankfully, this season didn't have a whole lot of stuff. It seems like, I guess, people were either bored with it or they couldn't follow the intricacies of the show. I didn't see a lot of spoilers, so that was good. But I do wonder, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on this. Do you think this show would benefit from being a weekly release instead of a binge drop? Because to me, like, if you're trying to extend this show and continue its dominance, or to keep it out there, why wouldn't Hulu want it to be a weekly show so that you generate, water cooler conversation and, viral moments, and people, you kind of build the audience over 8 to 10 weeks or whatever, instead of like just dropping it one weekend and then people kind of watch it or they don't and they move on. So Marcy, my question is, do you think the binge drop works this show, or would it be better to have a weekly release?
I think both could work. I definitely see your point about how it would be great as a weekly release, especially seasons 1 and 2, because they are so tense and there's so much anxiety around them. Like, when I first watched the show, obviously it was a binge, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot take the show. The show is way too stressful. I need an anxiety pill, something. But then when I went back and rewatched it these last couple of weeks, I was like, okay, now that I know what to expect, like, it's not that bad. But yes, if you do just release it like one episode each week, that gives like the anxiety time to go away before you have to get more anxiety before you see the next episode. So I would definitely be for like a weekly release, or like splitting it up into like, first half of season 3, second half of season 3, whatever. I mean, the show's great. I'll still watch it, however, but yeah, if they did it weekly, it would be fine.
Tristan, what do you think? Do you like weekly? You like binge? Which one?
I co-sign everything Marcy said. I think this show would benefit from it being week to week, and like, it's too good to not dominate, conversation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it should. Like House of the Dragon will dominate the conversation. Like social media conversation, it'll bleed into other parts of pop culture. This show deserves to be up there as well. Also, me and my wife have been having this conversation. Like, I miss like a certain period of time to where people or corporations or entertainment, it catered to what we needed and not necessarily what we wanted. Like, I miss only having like 99 channels, I miss commercials, like I've been kind of going back to like network sitcoms and stuff. Like Abbott Elementary is like a blast from the past for me. It's like, man, we just sat there and a commercial came on. We just sat there and waited until the show came back on, and like, you're not skipping through everything. You missed the commercials that came with it, like just the overall network feel. Like, waiting for Grey's Anatomy every week. You know, there was a certain period of time where people gave us what we needed and not just, oh, well, everybody wants everything at one time. Yeah, but like, has that made us better in any type of way? I don't think so. I don't think it's made entertainment better. I don't think it's helped the way that we like digest great art, right? We just get it, we talk about it, we spit it out. What's the next thing? I just think the show is way too prestige for that. Like, I think it cheapens itself essentially by just kind of giving it all at one time. Because like you said, you didn't see any spoilers because, again, this season is not about, you know, close your eyes and point to it, plot development. It's about things within the margins, you know, character development, plot, you know, a slower plot development. So you're not going to see people like, what's there to spoil? Well, Sugar had her baby. Like, okay, like, okay, cool.
Yeah, we figured that was going to happen. Yeah,
like that's not really the point of the episode. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's about the relationship between her and her mother and like the breakdowns and how, you know, relationships rise and fall or whatever. So I think it should be week to week. I think honestly everything should be week to week. You know, maybe some Netflix shows here and there. Maybe you're like your 23 episode seasons. You could probably do that for, because it might take a lot of people a long time to get through those episodes, especially if they're like an hour. Yeah. But for this show, which is like at times, you know, 27 minutes, 35 minutes, we could do that on a week to week basis. Like, I think we're at a point where we can handle that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it just would be, it's good to let stuff breathe. You know, like it's good to like watch something like, and then you wait a whole week and then you kind of miss it. You can't wait for that moment. You know, like it's like you said, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, they never did that. They're never going to do that. They're always going to be a weekly release thing because they want to build as big an audience as you possibly can and dominate and have people talking about it. And I think this show, like you said, it's too good to not be something people talk about every day at work. You know, like it's a great show, and you just got to let it breathe. Just, you know, let it breathe a little bit. Let's so there's a lot of high points we're going to hit, but let's just jump right into what do y'all think was the best episode of the season? I think we're all going to have the same answer. And I think in the chat, King B Johnson might have the answer. It was episode 6, Napkins. And Marcy, first off, was Napkins your favorite episode? And if so, explain what you liked about this episode.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much my favorite episode of this season. I liked the backstory that we did get with Tina. We learned so much about her because when I went back and rewatched season 1, and even when I first watched season 1, I was like, well, like, why does she have such an attitude when they're trying to change and make everything better? And why is she so attached to Mikey? Like, where does all this loyalty come from? And we saw that in Napkins. She has very strong loyalty to Mike because he pretty much like saved her when she was just down on her luck. She couldn't find a job. She was so stressed out. And like, that's why she was so hesitant to change. Here comes like Sydney, who's much younger and wanting to change things. And she's probably getting anxiety again of like, what does this mean for me and for my place here at the restaurant? What does this mean for the restaurant in general? Like, am I going to have a job next week? So it was good to see Tina's backstory, especially because it's something that is so relatable. Like, any one of us could find ourselves without a job and then having to hustle and then having to struggle to find a new job, just because there's so much competition out there and just kind of not knowing what's going to happen next. So that's what I really enjoyed about this episode. I really enjoyed seeing more John Bernthal. I think he is phenomenal in his role as Mikey. I think he makes us really like this character, again, that we've only seen through flashbacks, and the way people remember him. Which is interesting because maybe like that wasn't exactly like Mike was. Like, maybe they're showing him like in a better light because it's how you're remembering him. So
right.
I wonder if we would like him as much if we had been exposed to him firsthand and not like somebody's memory. But I think they did a really great job of, again, that vulnerability of like this man being able to open up to this strange woman who he's never met before. And then they're talking about just kind of like their biggest struggles right now and being open like that. So that is why I really liked this episode. And I probably would say it is my favorite of the whole season.
What's your other contender? Just while I have you here real quick. Do you have another one that you thought was like right up there?
I really liked the last episode as well, seeing just kind of, and we'll probably talk about this more, Carmi's realization of, am I the villain?
Exactly. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about the finale. Yeah.
So that's why I really enjoyed the last episode as well.
Tristan, about napkins. I know this is your favorite because we've talked about this in the chat a little bit. Or has it changed?
Not my favorite. It is
wow. Upset. Okay.
But I will tell you why Napkins is perfect television.
Okay.
If you say Napkins is the best episode of the season, you'll get no argument from me. I think Napkins is just about Mikey as it is about Tina. You know, it's about perspective. Right. You know, we see Tina's perspective throughout that entire episode up until that point, where it's like now we see, oh, this is why people love Mikey, right? If you notice throughout the entire series from season 1 on, like people flip-flop on these memories of Mikey. There's Mikey making everybody laugh, being the life of the party. There's Mikey the drug addict who had like these manic episodes. There's, you know, Mikey the supportive big brother, Mikey the ball breaker. Like there's so many different, you know, perspectives on Mikey. And from Tina, you understand why she's so loyal, not just to the family, but to the restaurant, you know, because it, like Mark said, it saved her at a time where she needed it the most. And Mikey was the catalyst of that. Like just kind of stopping and having a conversation, even before offering her a job, just kind of stopping and having a conversation and having somebody to listen to, and somebody who she could listen to, right? Like you start to build that relationship there. So I think, I put this in a group chat, you know, as soon as it was off, I said, hey, napkins, perfection, right?
Yeah. My
favorite episode is Ice Chips.
Okay.
Because that's just a master, man, Jamie Lee Curtis and Abby Elliott, that is a master class. And it feels like it's all shot in like one shot. Like, I don't know how many times they cut to like any, you know, the camera, any other, you know, person. That's just really just them going through like the ebbs and flows of their relationship. And Ice Chips pretty much almost brought me to tears. That is a beautiful episode because, again, you still feel the stress, the anxiety of, you know, man, they're having like a few good minutes. When will it break? Because, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis's character at any moment can just snap. You know, she has her own mental issues and those things can kind of pop up at any moment. But like, you can see like the love that they have for each other. You can see how painful it is for Sugar to explain to her mother why she didn't tell her that she was pregnant. Right. And like, she's using this point to like vomit out all of, you know, the discrepancy she's had with her mother that she's been holding in. And like so much of this show in general is about the pain that they hold in and don't let out, and they never let out. And it affects their relationships. It affects how they do their work. It affects their health, their mental, all these things. Like, and Sugar's just like, I have to get this out right now. Like, just as much as I have to abort this baby from my body, I have to abort these thoughts and these feelings. Otherwise, there's no progression. And I can guarantee you going forward, if we look at season 4 and whatever happens after that, I think you'll see a lighter Sugar because she got those things out. You know, Carmen that baby is still within him, and he refuses to let it out.
Yeah.
And that episode was perfect because it's letting you know this is a necessary step for growth, right? And this is all like a shot at Carmi. It's like, hey, Carmi, if you want to grow, if you really want to be the person that you want to be, that you've been working so long to be, you have to let these feelings go. You have to address them head on, right? Whether that's with Claire, whether that's the repressed feelings about, you know, Mikey's death, Richie finally in season 2, like you can see him starting to grow once he let those things go and let those feelings out. Now he can be more vulnerable with his ex-wife. He can be more vulnerable with his daughter. He could be, you know, he can have a relationship with Frank, you know, a healthy relationship with Frank for the betterment of their daughter and for Tiffany. Like, all these people are shedding this Mikey pain, you know, or the pain from that family, and Carmi's the last one. So I think Ice Chips is perfect because it's showing like a good roadmap for that type of growth. So like I said, emotionally, it was perfection. The writing, perfection. Jamie Lee Curtis and Abby Elliott, like that's their Emmy. That is the
real
Emmy station right there. Like, so Ice Chips, it's like -1 over napkins.
Yeah, I mean, this season, honestly, like I think episode 1 is phenomenal in its own right. It's very unique, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. The finale is great. But for me, for napkins, what really stood out to me is something that I never realized this, because you're kind of led to believe that everyone who worked at the Beef, they'd been there forever, and that's not the case with Tina. Because as that episode opens, she's laid off in like either November or December of 2018. And it takes her, a couple months. I mean, looking for a job is brutal. Like I can attest, like every time I've had to look for a job, it's never been fun. It never is easy. It's always a long process. A lot of the stuff that she experienced were jobs are posted online, and then she applies, or she thinks she has an interview, and then turns out she doesn't. Like that stuff has happened to me. I think that's happened to a lot of people. So that definitely hits home with me. But just the fact that she wasn't really with Mikey for that long, a period of time, because I think we're led to believe that he commits suicide like around in 2020, like pandemic time, maybe 2021.
I think it was 2022.
Okay. So she's worked there a couple of years before he dies, but I just thought she'd been there forever, and that's not the case. And also, like Marcy, you said, John Bernthal is awesome, and this is the only really scene he has all season where it's like him really getting to show his chops. It's not, he's in other parts of the season, but a lot of it's flashback stuff. But earlier I talked about how I didn't really love the chefs talking about food and how it relates to them. But I really enjoyed his perspective on it. He's telling Tina like hey, like this place is crazy to work, but sometimes it's the most fun you'll have in your life. And I really like the people. And he's like, if you think about it, celebrations, all the good times in your life, it always happens around food. And I think like, obviously he has more of like a common man perspective that I kind of identify with more so than these, fine dining experts and people like that. But like, I really think that stuff hit home. And the fact that he, gave her a lifeline in that moment where she was, literally she's crying into her free coffee and free sandwich, and he gives her a shirt, and then, we're off and running. And I think, the episode is called Napkins because, as he's talking to her, he's like, he's filling up the napkin dispensers for the restaurant. And I like the way this show, like just the way the thought that goes into just naming the episodes, like the titles for the episodes, it's like, it's pretty high. It's a pretty high level, pretty high bar. So I thought Napkins was, one of the best episodes of the series, and it was my favorite of the season. And also I should point out, it was directed by Ayo Edebiri. So Sydney actually got behind the camera and was the director for that. So that she's got a bright future, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera also. So let's kind of hit some other high points real quick as we go through what I mentioned the first episode. What are y'all's thoughts on that episode? Because that episode it's kind of just like a 35-minute flashback. We're kind of getting, Carmi's journey, as this like Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross kind of ambient music kind of plays throughout the whole episode. There isn't a ton of dialogue. It's all just looking back on what Carmi's experienced. How did you enjoy that episode, Marcy? And like what are your thoughts on how it kind of played out?
At first, it was just kind of confusing, and I was like, am I high? Is this the wrong episode? What is happening? What did I do? Why is nobody talking? So then I just kind of panicked a little bit because I was like, what is happening? And then I just kind of like was like, okay, it's just flashbacks. You're okay. And then when I rewatched it, I really liked it because then you get to see the progression of Carmi as a chef, in addition to Luca, who we've seen in previous seasons. But even though Carmi's always had, like, I just guess a lot of shit going on, and he's just a serious person, you could see that he did have some joy in cooking and just kind of learning all of these things, whether he was just kind of like working with the mushrooms or like peeling, like, I think it was like the peas and just kind of like peeling the microgreens off the stems. He was learning, but also he was doing it in environments where it was conducive to learning, right? We saw Chef Andrea Terry again. She was teaching, but she wasn't yelling at them, not belittling them. She would just be like, okay, like, faster, chef, please, chef, like, here's how you do it, chef. Do you need help? So it was great to see just his progression as a chef, how he was able to learn in a safe environment, and how that is not evident now in his restaurant and how things work. And it was very calm, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're just seeing like very calming presence of Olivia Colman juxtaposed to like the very uncalm presence of Carmy in the bear in the present day. So I enjoyed it the second time around after I just kind of understood what was going on and was not freaking out.
Yeah, like Marcy, once I realized that I clicked on the right show, like at first I had to go back. I'm like, did I feel like I clicked on, another show on the Hulu app instead.
Yeah.
But, once I got past that, and you just kind of immerse yourself into it. I thought that the season 3 premiere was genius, like in every type of way. Like you said, there's not much dialogue, but for each character, like, we don't get the same type of backstory episode that we get with Tina. We don't get the same backstory episode, or like the kind of solo immersive episode that we get with Richie and Forks. This is a backstory for Carmy, and it's going to be told through his experiences as a chef, like, because that's the one thing that he's passionate about. That's the thing that drives him. That's the thing he wakes up for. So we get to see how he's being shaped, not just as a chef, but as a leader. Like Marcy said, like the different forms of feedback that he gets when he flips over and becomes executive chef, I believe is the term, right? And the way that he kind of uses the different modes of feedback that he got, right? He tries to be encouraging, but you also flash back to flash forward to the present, and he has a lot of the elements of the places that he hated. My guy Joel McHale, like his character, like that is his biggest foil, because he's had the biggest impact. And it's so interesting because he had the biggest impact on him and he was the worst towards him, right? He can't get over that. It's the same thing with like Mikey. He can't get over that experience so much. And he has, at some point, he's going to have to address it, which he does. But you see where the strengths in Carmy as a boss come in. You see where the weaknesses come from. One, he just has, the family dynamics that he comes from weakens him in a certain way that makes it hard to be vulnerable. It kind of carries that chip on his shoulder. But you also see like the great experiences that he's had, like just that have made him fall in love with food, right? Like I think it was the French Laundry where he's, cooking outside, he's eating outside, like you can see him with a smile on his face, like the camaraderie at the places that he's working on. And then you just see like intense pressure, being at other restaurants. And you could, like, this is a full spectrum. Like, I just thought it was a brilliant episode. And just as a side point, it demonstrated to me how The Bear is just continuously becoming the show that it wants to be. I said it, like, I compared a lot with Atlanta. Atlanta season 1 is about as standard a season as you're going to get. Like, they don't really take a ton of chances, right? It's just your regular storyline is really funny. It's dramatic at times, but it doesn't really get outside of its own bubble, its own box. And season 2, you can start to see them going with a lot of the weirdness, like seeing like this disjointed season where the plot goes this way and they come back this way for the next season. Like, it's not like the continuous storyline. And then season 3 and season 4 continue that on. The Bear is becoming a show that it always wanted to be, which is weird, and taking those chances. And I appreciate, like I said, I want television shows and movies to give me what they feel like I need and not what I want. And I appreciate a show that has been that critically acclaimed. It's a critical darling. It's like Game of Thrones, where even when in a quote unquote bad season, it's going to sweep the awards. But them still taking those chances, like I just appreciate that. Like that's a different. I've never seen an episode like that where you go through these different modes of time. Your main character probably has like 2 lines of dialogue, but you're still able to tell a story in the same way. Now I'm able to learn more about Carmi probably than I ever did in the first 2 seasons combined. So season 1, it's not it probably won't make my top 5 favorite episodes of the series. But when I think about season 3 and I think about where it took with like character development, it starts with episode 1 and how it frames Carmi through his experiences. So I loved it.
Yeah, I think it's a bold choice to start the season that way. And I think, whenever you're doing the binge model, I think you can kind of get away with that because people are going to watch episode 2 and 3 right after that. But I even think if it was a weekly thing, it'd be very bold to like go like, hey, we're going to do a flashback episode. We're going to tell a story with the clips that you've already seen and stuff maybe you haven't seen, and be very creative and weave it all through and have this like ambient music that plays throughout the whole thing. And then, because basically all we're doing is they're basically it's the next day after what happened at the end of season 2. So really creative stuff. I enjoyed episode 1 quite a bit. Let's move on to a couple of their highlights. This isn't a highlight for the people who work at the Bear, but let's talk about Carmen's non-negotiables, his list, which the main thing includes changing the menu every day. Marcy, what do you think about that? And like, would you like to work at a place that changed the menu every single day?
Absolutely not. I think it would depend on what my role at this restaurant would be.
Yeah.
But absolutely not would be my first answer to that. The non-negotiables, they kept on like repeating it. It was just making me very anxious because at work we always talk about like, what are your non-negotiables? So I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear about non-negotiables in my show after I've heard it in my work all day. But that was episode 2, which was the non-negotiable episode, was so great because of all of the chaos that we had in that kitchen scene with everybody and just kind of everybody telling everybody else to fuck off, which made for like really great drama and tension and television. But no, Carmi is obviously insane. He's pushing himself too hard, which we could see the rest of the season, but I knew that wasn't going to work out when he started making this very long list of non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love like the stunt of the non-negotiable because again it demonstrates the complicated puzzle of who Carmen is as a boss. Like, yeah, he's learned like these different standards, like the every second counts and the language, the lingo, and the jargon that he introduces to the restaurant to get them on that standard, like saying corner, like just the communication things. But like he also, I don't think Carmen is developed enough as a leader to be able to like massage those commandments, I call them, with that staff. Again, until he kind of does his own self-reflection and self-awareness. And he kind of heals from his own experiences, but like he's overforcing these things. And not to mention like some of these things are just not practical, a new menu every day when you're already struggling with supply, when you have cash flow issues, or like you're always in danger of like this whole thing shutting down. It's like, that's him seeing things in the short term and not seeing like the overall big picture, which is is like the next phase of leadership. Is like, yeah, we have this goal and here's what we want to get to. But, you also have to kind of stop and think, now, what is the most efficient and effective way to get there? And I think he pushes the rest of the staff because he has been pushed so much. And I think he foolishly thinks that the pushing is what got him there. And it's like, no, it's the passion. It's the nurturing that you also got. It's the kind of taking a step back, the relationships, and how those things manifest themselves through these leadership edicts, like the non-negotiables, these commandments. Like all those things go together. You can't just put these negotiables there and say, hey, okay, now let's execute. It's like, how do you execute those things? And that's what Carmi, and you can tell that he's having second thoughts about those things throughout the season. I think he asked, Fat, it's like, hey, am I fucking this up? He says it really quickly and kind of pulls back. He doesn't like really keep going into it, but like, am I fucking this up? And that's your subconscious telling you that you're fucking it up. Like if you have to ask that question, son, you're fucking this up. You're like, but he's just because he's so talented and he's put so many other things in place. Like it's a slow fuck up, whereas a quicker fuck up might have let him know I need to change this. But because the food is still going to be good, right? The restaurant is going to run. People are going to enjoy the experience. But like, again, just like season 3 as a whole, like it's the stuff that within the margins, like those non-negotiables are another thing that's going to keep people on edge. It's another thing that's going to affect relationships and these very small fissures that become large breaks at the end. Like, and the negotiables are another thing that gives Sydney, pause about her long-term commitment to not just the restaurant, but to Carmi as a partner and as a boss. So I loved it as a trope of just demonstrating where Carmi has been, like we see in episode 1, but also where he still needs to go as a leader in order to make this thing really be successful in the way that he should want it to be successful and not the way that he's seen things be successful in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it. And let's go to, so we talked about the best episode of the season, our favorite episode. I want to talk about, I don't know if this is the best scene, but I think the biggest scene of the season is in episode 10 when Carmi confronts David Fields, who is played by Joel McHale, at the funeral for Ever. Ever is the restaurant that Olivia Colman's character she's closing this like legendary restaurant in Chicago. And he's the whole night, he's just staring at David Fields from across the room, just because this is the guy that he sees in his, in his dreams and his mind all the time. This is the guy that says, this better get good or it's got to be gone. It's like, you're terrible. Like you should quit. Just this, constant negative just on him. And which we see how, that kind of has pushed Carmi to be his best, which the confrontation is basically, Carmi wants to talk to this guy, wants to say, fuck you, which he does say that. But, David Fields surprises him by saying like, look, like, I made you this way. Like you came to me, you were an okay chef and you left an excellent chef. Like I made you focus. I made you concentrate. You should thank me. Like, you're welcome. And just the way Carmi reacts. And it's like, I mean, it's such great acting between those two actors, but like, it's a powerful scene. Marcy, what are your thoughts on that showdown in the finale?
I liked this scene. It was just kind of cringy because it's like, really, Carmi? Did you really just tell him, like, I think about you? Like, what is happening here? But I can understand where he's coming from when there's somebody who has caused so much chaos in your life and just kind of been terrible to you. You definitely want to say, like, fuck you. Like, you gave me, and he tells him, you gave me anxiety. You gave me ulcers. Like, you were terrible for my physical health, for my mental health, for my emotional health. To then be met with, well, you should thank me for that because that's what made you good at what you do. But also, I don't even think about you. Like, you are so inconsequential to me that I don't even think about you, which was great. And that scene reminded me of a scene from Mad Men where somebody tells that to main character Don Draper. Yeah, he's like, I think the line was like, I feel sorry for you or something like that, or I pity you. And then Don Draper, played by John Hamm, was like, I don't even think about you at all. So that's the first thing I thought of when I saw this scene. But I think it was cathartic for Carmi. But then that's when he had his big realization of, oh shit, am I the villain? Because everything that he did to me is exactly what I'm doing in my restaurant. I am not the Chef Terry in my restaurant. I am him, the person I hate the most. So hopefully that will make him change and like reflect, but to get the notification about the about the review right after that, I'm very interested to see what happens after such a very trying night for Kirby.
Yeah, that's where the entire season and probably season 2 as well has been building towards is that moment. But what did I talk about with Sugar? Like the baby as a metaphor for like getting rid of like the past trauma and like how trauma can be transferred, from one generation to the next. That's Carmi, illustrated. The trauma that he got from, that chef, he's passing on to like his staff now. Instead of taking like more of the positive experiences, like Chef Terry, like that's the person that you should emulate, right?
Right.
Great chef. Staff not only loves her, but like they love the restaurant. Like they feel like indebted. Like there's something that they wake up and wanting. They're served by making their restaurant better, right? That's what makes them feel like they feel like some type of ownership. And that's the thing that I think Carmi has to impart onto the bear is not just these people looking up to you because, hey, you're Carmi, like this, renowned chef, this prodigy, this mastermind at what you do, but like ultimately you don't know how to be a leader because it's like most great athletes don't make great coaches, like
exactly. They can't relate to the average player.
They cannot relate to the average or below average or really good. They can't relate to that either. It's just like it's great or nothing. And striving for greatness and achieving greatness like puts you at a certain plane mentally, and it's hard to like dive below that line again. And and like talk to the common folk essentially. And Carmi has to do that. So like I'm happy that Chef David like told him, hey, you should thank me, because Carmi could have taken that and said, oh yeah, they should thank me as well. I'm Carmen, I'm Carmi. Like I'm the Carmi. Like they should thank me as well. Like I'm giving them this opportunity. I'm sending them off to be better chefs in different restaurants. I'm giving them access to things that they never would have gotten if I never would have came home and turned the beef essentially into the bear. But that's not who Carmi is at his core. At his core, he loves cooking. He loves the relationships and all the things that come with being a chef and food and all that stuff and building something up, with the community. So like, it's interesting to see like the opposite ends of the spectrum with him and Sid, where they're both realizing slowly throughout the course of the season of why they're doing it. Right. And it's about community. Like community is the thing that keeps Sid from accepting that job offer immediately. Right. It's the community is building something up. It's having something that's her own. Carmi is the same thing, but he's also kind of abusing the thing that he loves the most. So like that interaction, it has to be the catalyst for season 4 of him identifying, I can't be this person. Yeah. I can't be him. I want to be more Chef Terry than I want to be Chef David. And it's just like, again, another thing that this show is about is like, again, that past trauma. Like, so Carmi's trauma comes from his family. It comes from like some of the bad experiences that he's had on the journey to being a great chef. But he has to let those things go. He has to abort that baby. That baby has to come out. He just kind of vomited through that interaction with Chef David because he's just spilling out feelings that he should have said, to somebody, maybe Sugar, maybe, I don't know. He really doesn't have any other friends. Claire, somebody. He should have said these feelings in some type of way, but he just couldn't get them out. And they've been repressed for so long, and it just comes out as more pain. So, yeah, it was bound to happen. Again, the last 2 seasons have been building towards him addressing at least one of his past traumas head on, and that was it.
Yeah. I think he will learn from this, and I certainly hope he does, because he just needs to just relax, man. Like you're excellent at what you do. You've got a great group of people around you. You got this phenomenal restaurant. I mean, obviously there's some financial concerns with the place, but just relax, be a person, have a life, apologize to Claire, see what happens there, and just live and stop being so he's so hyper focused on this. And I hopefully this opens his eyes and allows him to just be a person, because he's done, he's got an amazing talent and there's a lot of great people around him. He's just got to embrace those people and, keep it moving, don't be so focused on the negative. There's a lot of positive also there. So let's talk about the Chicago Tribune review, because that's how the season ends. And that from mid-season on, we find out the Tribune is going to do a review about the bear. And it's obviously an issue for everyone to think about. It's you have, Unc Cicero, who's not actually their blood uncle, but he is funding the bear. And he basically tells Carmi straight up in episode 8 or 9, he says, look, if we get a bad review, we're gonna have to close this place. And so the pressure's building on, Carmi, on everybody. Everyone's focused on, we got to get a good review. And then the way the season ends, with Carmi after the interaction at Ever, he's walking the streets of Chicago. He gets, his phone's buzzing. He gets a Google alert that the review is dropped. He's got missed calls and missed messages from the computer and from Cicero. So, Marcy, my question to you, do you think the review is good? Do you think it's bad? Because we're seeing positive and negative words. We're seeing, excellent but sloppy. We're seeing, all these different things that are, contrasting terms. Do you think it's going to be a positive review? Because the last thing Carmi says is motherfucker. And it's like, you can't tell is like a relief motherfucker, or if it's like, motherfucker, we're going to close and this is all for nothing. And what am I doing with my life now? What do you think?
I think it could go both ways. Like a lot of reviews, again, like you mentioned, there was positive and negatives. We didn't really see everything. So part of me was like, was this even what was in the review, or was this like Carmen's projection of what might be in the review? And like, he didn't really read it. It's just kind of like words flashing in his mind. But most likely it is that these are the words from the review. And I don't think it's going to be like a terrible review, but I think like what they said, like basically like it lacked cohesion. There's sloppiness, which is all things that you should expect when you've only had a restaurant open for, I think it's been 2 months, right? Since they've had their friends and family thing and they opened the whole restaurant. I don't think it's going to be a terrible review, but I think just because we know of Unk's financial troubles, that even if it is just kind of like a mid review, he's going to have to like cut the purse strings and be like, I can't fund this anymore because I owe all this money and I'm broke now. So I think it's going to be a fine review, but it's not going to be fine for Carmi, obviously, unless it's like a perfect review. But you just opened your restaurant, like chill, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be, I like what you said about it being about the projection of the review. Because ultimately it doesn't matter. It matters on the Cicero front, because he's made that threat to pull, funding for the restaurant if the review is bad. But I think this review is going to be about how Carmi takes it and what he chooses to do with it. Like, which way are you going to go with it? Are you going to say, we didn't get this perfect review, so I need to like keep hammering this nail, while we have this restaurant? Or do I need to like really look at the things within the margin, the relationships, what do I need to do to evolve as a leader of this restaurant in order to get it to where I need to be? So like, I think that's what a big part of season 4 is going to be about, is like him just kind of choosing which path. Like, that's what the flashbacks were for in episode 1, is like, which way are you going to go? And we see him in some ways kind of go one way, the Chef David way, kind of go the Chef Terry way. And he's gonna have to make a decision on what type of leader do you want to be? What do you want this to look like? Even if it goes down sinking, like, what kind of experiences do you want to create for the chefs in their own story when they go through in the flashbacks of their mind? Do you want it to be all, you yelling at Richie, you locking yourself in the freezer, you forgetting to call this repairman, you being inconsistent, unfocused in certain ways because you're in your own head? Do you want it to be about the non-negotiables, or do you want it to be about the fucking napkins? You know what I'm saying? Like the conversations that people are having, like saving people, like giving people access to food that they never had, being access to ways to cook food that they never had. Like, what do you want the bear to be about? So yeah, I think that review is, I would say, it's probably, from what we just saw like buzzwords.
Yeah. From
his phone. So I would say it was probably like 60 to 70% positive, and it probably like talked about some things that it could improve on. Right. So like, where's Carmi going to do with that information? Like, that's what I'm very interested to see. But I thought it was a great way to end the season off.
Yeah, no, it's a great cliffhanger. I think obviously, a great review would be the happy ending that I think everybody would want. But I think a mixed review is probably more likely. And again, to go with the reality of the show, that's going to be where it's going to be open for interpretation. It's like, we have a lot of positives, we have some negatives. Like, then it's going to be, how are they going to obviously, financially continue to keep the bear running? But Yeah, I think mixed reviews probably the way what we're going to see. And speaking of that, so we know there's going to be a season 4. Do we think that season 4 is going to be the final season, or do you think this show will continue? This is just basically predictions. I don't know that we know a ton about going forward. But Marcy, what's your kind of gut feeling on is season 4 the final season of The Bear?
I don't know. I don't think so. Again, like you said, it is so popular, so they might want to try to keep it going. I do know that they filmed seasons 3 and 4 like at the same time, just because it happened right after the writer's strike. So there's some more story. I don't know how much more story. I would not be upset if they stopped the story after season 4, because again, I don't know how much you can stretch it out and keep the story compelling and keep the show as good as it is if you do try to stretch it out and just kind of add more episodes and more seasons just for the hell of it, just to make money. But there might be one additional season after season 4 just because of all of the positive just kind of buzz around the show. But I don't think we'll do more than 5 seasons.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you won't go past season 5. What happens with Sid and her decision, I think will let us know if we get a season 5. If it goes like I think it's going to go, then I think we'll absolutely get a season 5, but it shouldn't go any further past that.
Well, actually, my next question was going to be, do you think, just like with Carmi or with these like, internal discussions or, these things that are happening, do you think Sid is going to stick with the Bear, or is she going to go for the potential better opportunity?
I think it depends on what the review says.
Really? You think the review is going to be the determining factor?
I don't think it's going to be the determining factor. I think just the culmination of everything she's kind of experienced from Carmi, not just this season, but in the previous seasons. She starts to get disenchanted in season 2 when he starts hanging out with Claire a lot. And she's like, is this really the right choice? You're getting unfocused. We're supposed to be working all day and you just kind of blow me off because you have something else to do with Claire. So I think from there, she's just kind of started to see him as, yes, he's brilliant. He's amazing at what he does, but maybe he's just not very reliable. He's not a good boss because it was supposed to be one way and it was supposed to be both of us making these decisions. And he's not including me on any decisions. He created the non-negotiables list without me knowing. He's changed the menu. So I think it will be just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It would be interesting to see her take the job with Shapiro, because why wouldn't she? I mean, it pays her at least $10,000 more. She already has insurance. So I definitely think she should take it. And then that would also show Carmi, like, you definitely have to change. Otherwise you're going to keep on losing people.
She also has like a new apartment. Like she has shit to pay for. Like, again, like so much of, they've built her character up by letting us know that she's taken the risk of like starting her own business and it failed miserably and it set her back so much. And like, she's been on this slow build to like rebuild herself as a chef, as a person, as a, financially, all these things. So like, again, this is another risk. Like going fully in on the Bear is a huge risk. And if it goes wrong, that could break her for good. So I could see her taking a safer route and taking a job away from the Bear. And I could see a lot of season 4 is Carmi, reckoning with that and figuring out how he can either get her back or like just, be a better chef. So if she does come back, that they have a long lasting partnership. So I'm interested to see what they do with Sydney, because again, from episode to episode, I can be like, hey, you're building something, keep building. I could also see her saying, it's not worth it. Like Marcy said, as brilliant as he is, like I need something reliable or it's going to break me. So whatever happens with Sid is going to be the catalyst for the Bear going forward.
Yeah, and you do bring up a great point. The fact that if she does leave, that would make it where season 5 would make sense, because you got to try to get her back somehow in the fold. The one thing I wonder about them having a season 5 is, the stars of this show they're big stars in Hollywood, right? I mean, Jeremy Allen White, he's got a lot of roles coming up. Ebon Moss-Bachrach is going to be in Fantastic Four, which they're start filming later this month for a movie that comes out next summer. Huge Marvel movie. Ayo was going to be in Thunderbolts, another Marvel movie. She had to drop out because of the writer's strike and the actor strike. But she's got a ton of opportunities, obviously, in front of the camera, behind the camera. So you just wonder how long will these emerging stars want to stay on a TV show? Now, granted, it's a prestige TV show. It's a high quality show, but I just wonder how much longer they're going to want to do that, because this is the kind of show that could last a long time. It could just be a fun hangout show, because these are people that I think you want to see how their lives progress, and you just kind of want to be around them. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think 5 will probably be the final season if they get to 5. But you're right. I think Sydney, her decision will kind of, tip off like, okay, are they going to wrap it up 4, or are we going to get some more in 5? I want to touch on a couple of things that I thought were kind of unbelievable from this season. So Ibra is running the beef window. They've got the beef. So the restaurant used to be called The Beef because they sold these Italian beef sandwiches. Well, now their fine dining spot has a drive-through window where they're selling these beef sandwiches that they're the only thing they're making money for the whole operation. But he's running it by himself early in the season. Now, later on, he gets help. Chucky and Chris, 2 of the guys who were a big part of it when Richie and Mikey were running the beef back in the day, they return. They've got a whole system in place. They help him run it, and the beef is flourishing. First off, Marcy, do you think this is realistic in the fact that would a fine dining spot have a fast food kind of window? And also, like, why do they wait so long to give Ibra some help if that's the only moneymaker you've got in the building?
I have no clue. That definitely seemed like an afterthought. I love that idea. I think that's a great idea. Like if Whataburger decided to like have like a fine dining like arm of it, like that would be pretty interesting. But yes, like why didn't they say like, hey, you're running this all by yourself and you're having like some trouble because you're struggling. Like we should definitely get you some help because this is our only moneymaker. And, we don't want the locals that were supporting us all these years to stop coming for the beef sandwiches because then we're totally fucked. But yeah, I like what you said. Like, why did nobody help Ibra for a while?
Yeah, imagine Morton's Steakhouse like sold daiquiris out of the back, some shit like they'll drive through. Yeah, like that. The beef part was such an afterthought that I completely forgot that there was a beef. Until like they just, they kind of broke it down. Like, yeah, this is the only thing that's making money, and they show like the process. I didn't really give the beef like that portion that much thought to like even have thoughts on it, like commentary. I'm just like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I guess I don't know. Maybe it's the Chicago-ness of it. Like, this is still a fine dining restaurant, but it's a spot in like the Italian hood of Chicago, like, so it didn't seem like too much off the mark for them to have like this side, restaurant on the side, where you kind of serve these loyal customers. But I do think like that's a smart thing. But yeah, get them to do some help, man. But again, it also demonstrates like a lack of the bigger picture on Carmi's part. Is like you're so focused on getting this star that, again, who are you forgetting about? The people.
Yeah.
Like this is, restaurants is a people business.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So if you don't master the people portion, if you're not serving it's like a team gets like really successful and prices out is like long-term fans. It's like, no, don't forget about the people that got you, that held you down, right? And that's why, the napkins episode is so important, because it shows you like, hey, this restaurant, though it may have issues financially, it may have issues with the owners, the family behind it. Like ultimately, this is about community, and Carmi has to realize that in order for the bear to be successful. So again, it was an afterthought to me. I didn't really give it a lot of thought in a moment because of the anxiety of the bear part. But now that I think about it, it's a perfect metaphor for like the overall problems that Carmi's facing. Right. Too much focus on like this one goal that it blocks out like everything else that actually is working for you. Like not even just financially, like it's working for you. It's just something that you can depend on. All right.
Yeah.
So like take care of the people.
Yeah, Carmi is so focused on proving one person wrong. One person who doesn't think about him, who purposely or maybe not purposely calls him by the wrong name, calls him Bergazzo instead of Berzado when they meet up, and that he can't see what's going on right underneath or within his restaurant. Um, Tristan, you mentioned the napkin episode or napkins. So the episode where Ibra gets help is episode 7. So right after napkins. And one of my little favorite moments of that episode is after Ibra gets help. He's had a great day, and you get this little moment between Tina and Ibra, and that she's talking about how he's had a good day, and then she just kind of walks over and like touches a napkin dispenser, just kind of like as a nod to, obviously this was a good moment for her that we saw in the previous episode. So again, like the way they tell the story is pretty creative. Moving on, another thing that I thought we should mention is haunting. The facts love talking about haunting, which it's not it's not like Halloween kind of haunting. It's when someone's in your head. And I gotta admit, early on when they're talking about it, I was kind of annoyed by it. But whenever they mentioned about how, Carmi, all he thinks about is Claire. They ask him, like, do you ever think about her? He's like, no, never. He's like, just all the time, or whatever. It's something like that. And then they go, dude, she's haunting you. And then he realizes, he's like, maybe she is haunting me. That's when the haunting thing really clicked in for me. Marcy, what are your thoughts on that? And just the whole, how often the facts mention haunting?
Again, like you, it just didn't click first for me. I was like, okay, where are they going with this? But this whole season is about haunting and what you're haunted by, what was haunting Mikey to make him want to kill himself, but also what is haunting Carmi. You've got the trauma of like your dad leaving. You've got the trauma of Mikey not wanting you to help at the beef and not letting you like work there and be his partner, and then killing himself, and then you not going to his funeral, seeing it from afar, the trauma of like your mom and her addiction issues. So he's got all this haunting him, the terrible experience at the restaurant, and now Claire. What is haunting Natalie? And she's been able to let that go, but that was just such a overall theme of the whole season, to where it was great, especially because they were able to point it out to him and be like, dude, like she's very obviously haunting you, so you have to do something about that.
Yeah, everything Marcy said. I would just say, I know the one scene that I did not like, maybe I'll like it more on the rewatch, is when they actually go to Claire's job.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the one real unrealistic of all the show. Like that's the one part that's unrealistic. Like nobody's going to a hospital,
right,
unannounced to tell your friend's ex-girlfriend like that at that age. Like that's just not something that's gonna happen. So I didn't need that scene, but yeah, I totally agree. This whole thing's about haunting. Richie, haunted by the failure of his marriage, and how that affects his relationship with his daughter, and like having to accept another man coming in and being another man in his daughter's life. Like it's all about haunting. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like going to her work, and she's an ER doc too. Like, emergency room. Like that's definitely not where you want to have this conversation. Sticking with Carmi and Claire, he doesn't apologize to her face. He doesn't even text her. There is a great moment though, where he enters the walk-in fridge where season 2 ended, and he's like staring at her phone, and he's just saying sorry over and over as he looks at her name on her phone. It looks like he's gonna like maybe hit the like he's gonna call her. He doesn't do it. I thought that was a pretty like powerful moment to show like how he just can't bring himself to do what he needs to do. Marcy, do you think Carmi and Claire are gonna get back together? Do you think he's gonna eventually like say something to her? Is she gonna have to like confront him? Like, how does this work out between these two, you think?
I don't know, but I definitely hope that she does keep haunting him until he at least apologizes. And then in my real life, I also hope that people are haunted because they haven't apologized to me. So until they apologize, they shall also be haunted. But no, realistically, he needs to apologize. He needs to express his feelings, even if it doesn't make them get back together, right? Like, it's still apologize because of what you said about this human. Like, if they were your feelings, like, that is valid, but that still doesn't mean that it didn't hurt her to hear them. I don't know if she'll reach out because she doesn't really have to reach out. She doesn't really have anything to apologize for. She did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And she seems to be doing fine, right? Like, she might be a little heartbroken over it, but she's still thriving. She's still doing her job. From what we saw, she is not haunted by it. She's still able to do her job and just still function as a human being, whereas Carmi maybe not so much. So I think the ball is in Carmi's court to just really grow up, just apologize. And then even if you don't want to call your mom back, just grow up. Like, just be like, well, I don't want to talk to you, mom, instead of having everybody in your life reminding you to call your mom.
Also, why does he have a phone? He never uses the phone. Like, just get rid of, like computer says, like, why do you have a phone at the restaurant if you don't take reservations? Like, get rid of the expense.
And I mean, Carmi, like, go visit your sister. She just had a baby. Like,
yeah.
What is your problem? You need to just grow up a little.
Yeah, it's just demonstrating like most of the people around him have done the emotional work that he needs to mature.
Yeah.
And so much of his maturity has been wrapped up in cooking, and being a chef, and like a lot of the social and emotional maturity and intelligence that he needs, unironically, to be a good leader and boss. He's just lacking at the moment. Yeah. But the ball's in his court. Like Claire, like Marcia said, she might be heartbroken over what happened, but she's not emotionally broke down. Like, right. She understands how to live and how to treat people emotionally while also dealing with obstacles and setbacks, while also moving the fuck on. Like, so like he needs to learn that, that's something. This is about his journey to being the Carmi that he needs to be. So even if they don't get back together, I really hope they get back. I love Carmi and Claire.
Yeah.
Love Carmi and Claire. I really hope that happens, but I also don't hope it happens if he's not fully realized as, like an emotionally secure man. He has to be that for any part of his life to be successful.
Yeah, he's got to step up and do his part because, even in season 2, when we first meet her, she's the one that's making this happen. She's the aggressor. She's the one who, they meet at a grocery store or whatever, convenience store, but like, she's the one who kind of pursues this, and like it's what he wants according to everybody in his family. So that's another interesting internal battle that hopefully we'll get an answer in season 4. My final thing is, and Tristan, so you said Ice Chips was your favorite episode. Well, prior to Ice Chips, literally this, a couple minutes before the previous episode, we see Sugar. She's going to the restaurant depot to get Seafolds, which is one of the names of the episode. One of the episodes, I believe, which I didn't even know what that was. They explained those are paper towels, and she's there. She's 2 weeks away from going into labor. For whatever reason, her husband he's on a business trip, which is like, what is he doing? And she goes into labor after she loads up the car from the restaurant depot. Mike, two questions. Why doesn't she call someone before she gets in the car to drive? And secondly, why are people letting her do this? Like, she's way too pregnant to be, fighting through Chicago traffic to go to this restaurant store to get the supplies they need.
Well, Pete's out of town, I think, because he's a lawyer and there was some kind of case. And he was like, do you want me to go? And she's like, fine, whatever.
Right,
so it's still like not great timing. Like, you've known she's been pregnant for 9 months. Like, let's try to be better with scheduling. And I think like it was either Marcus or somebody else that's like, do you want me to go get the paper towels? And she's like, no, like I really need to get some air. Mm-hmm. But also like maybe take somebody with you if you are that pregnant, like you may give birth at any time. I think she's just stubborn. I think she's had to grow up like having her own back, right? Like there's probably not a lot of people she could depend on. Like definitely can't depend on her mom or her dad because they're either emotionally unavailable or addicted or just they like walked out, Mikey is gone, and then Carmi is Carmi. So who's really left? And I think that's just part of who Natalie is. Like, well, I've got to do this myself and I'll be fine. And like, let me drive myself to this hospital. And the last person that I'm going to call is my mom. And she's the only one who was available.
She answers the call. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Again, just that's their family. Like you said, like Sugar Nat, she has to like handle things for everybody. Even like her husband, like kind of like a surrogate mother to him in some ways, like emotionally. Like he kind of acts like a child in a lot of ways. So yeah, like it didn't surprise me that she went off by herself. Like, and then of course her water breaking was so foreshadowed in so many different ways. Like you can absolutely feel like something bad was going to happen to where she needed people. And of course, nobody would answer the phone. She went through literally everyone. She started calling the facts. Like she called everyone in her phone, and couldn't get anybody because everybody's so hyper focused on the restaurant, on these different things. So like, yeah, ultimately, it led her back to, which led to my favorite episode. Led her back to her mom. Like, that was just poetic.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, but I think we're gonna wrap it up now. But just real quick, is there anything we didn't mention that you'd like to mention, Marcy?
No, overall, it was a great season. I really, really loved it.
Yeah, we had like 30 more minutes. We could talk about Luca completely fumbling.
Yeah.
Trying to impress the chef. I forgot his name. Sorry, but that was hilarious.
He was so cute. Like he's just like a little excited puppy, like fanboying over like the chef. So yeah. I love him in that role.
He was asking way too many questions. Yeah. And there's so many other great characters. Go ahead, Tristan.
Me, if I ever meet Steph Curry, I'm like, hey, when you made that shot in 2016, like what exactly was like just nerd shit? Like that's all that was.
Yeah.
You got a too nerdy, like, hey fella, this is a party, essentially.
Yeah.
Find some women.
Okay, quick final question. The bear, a lot of their food is like tweezer food. It's more like art than it is like a hearty meal. Just real quick, do you think you would enjoy the food at the bear, Marcy?
Some of it didn't even look appetizing, like that dish that Carmi was trying to perfect. I don't know. It looked like Spam. It didn't even look appetizing. It was like, what are you doing? I think I might enjoy it because they are good at it. But I would probably definitely enjoy an Italian beef.
Yeah.
So maybe focus a little bit there as well, Carmi, because who says you can't get a Michelin star just making like bomb ass like Italian beef sandwiches and just perfecting that rather than making like super snooty food that's like $175 a person to eat there.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I think that's another route that the show may take, if I'm just thinking narratively, is like coming back to his roots. Yeah. But yeah, I think I would enjoy like some of those like steak dishes that I saw like look good as hell. Yeah. I would probably like go to Whataburger after though. Like I need something something to fill me up after. So yeah, I think I would enjoy some of it. But again, the menu changes every goddamn day. Like let me know what I'm looking for. So
and no substitutions. I would be like pissed if I go there on a day where they have something either that I can't eat or that I don't like to eat because I hate raw onions. So like if you put raw onions on something and I can't tell you to take it off, what the hell? Like, no, you've got to at least be accommodating. He could kill me with like a peanut because they're like, we don't do substitutions. I'll be like, I'm allergic. And they're like, tough, die. This is Chicago.
You know what? You got me thinking, what if the positive in the review is about the beef and not the bear? And I maybe that's not the way it would work out given, how reviews work in newspapers and that kind of stuff. But that would be very interesting if the positive is, hey, the sandwiches are great. They should stick to that. Just saying. We'll see.
That would be amazing. If I'm thinking about if I was writing season 4 or season 5, we'd be coming back to our roots. And like you said, just mastering that.
Full circle. I can't wait for season 4. I think I speak for everybody. We really are looking forward to how this story continues. What a great show. And so now you know what we think about the Bear. We want to know what you think about it. The best way to do that is to join us live when we're doing these shows or live streaming or chat. Thanks to King B Johnson tonight for all the great comments. We really appreciate that. And, you know, hey, while you're on YouTube over here, like we're heading toward 400 subscribers. So I think we're like at 385 right now. So spread the word, you know, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. We're also on social media because of course we are, right? So if you could please do us a favor, follow us on social media. We're at Watcher's Basement. We're on Facebook, X, I still call it Twitter. It's on Instagram, and we're also on Threads. And if you're on social media, be sure to use the hashtag Watcher's Basement. That'll help us find what you're saying, and we appreciate that. But hey, you know, we do a lot of video stuff here on YouTube, but we also have the audio versions of our podcast available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Of course, on Spotify, you can also watch this on Spotify. So check us out there. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. That helps out with all this stuff. So as we wrap up tonight, for Tristan and for Marcy, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
What's the password?